Mike Alcoholic. I was scanning the room. I was looking at all the folks, and I got to thinking about what if I tried to kick somebody out of here? There's some fellas in here, I can guarantee you there's no way they would allow that to happen. I agree. I admit I'm not the baddest ass person in the room. And why am I talking about this? The reason I'm talking about this is how come it's so easy if God is so powerful? How come it's so easy for me to kick him out of my life? Because he's a gentleman, right? Because he gives me free will. Because we come in here and we talk about how powerful God is. There's a person in here today that'll walk right into the state store and go get drunk. Where's he now? Where's he then? It's because he gives me that free will. And our book talks about it. It talks about God's only interested in us when we seek him enough. Now that poses a big question for me. He said, wait, you mean he's not interested in me if I'm not seeking him? You know, and I have to open my eyes and look at the grand scheme of things. There's a lot of things going on in this world that God has to deal with. And if I don't want to give him the time of day, why would he want to waste his time with me? I have to accept that that may be a truth. That I have to open myself up. Or he's not even interested. Another part of the book, it says, only when we move toward him does he disclose himself. Another idea that I must embrace. Because it says if I'm not even trying to seek God, I might not even be able to see God. And he senses my willingness to open myself up to his good orderly direction. And then all of a sudden he appears. He may be invisible to me up to that point. And I can certainly tell you from being out there in my cups, our book talks about that unlovely creature that I was. I didn't see as much of God as I do now that I'm in the steps. And we can all agree on that. That I tend to see things more in here that lead me in the right direction than I saw when I was out there in my self-will, in my free will that he gave me. You know, I've been in a lot of meetings, and sometimes to me, I maybe not today, but I find, you know, God meetings, I'm like, oh no, not another God meeting. And I'll lay back in my chair, and I know I'm not the only old-timer that has thought that. Because we've heard it all. We've heard all the things that people are going to say. We've heard it from people who have come in and out and said, wait, if God was so powerful, how come you've got 10 white chips? I mean, you know, and you have to really process this stuff. And I have to realize that it really, it ends up in the final analysis is what am I willing to do and what am I willing to embrace in my life? And I have to say that, you know, there was a time, I'll never forget this either. I was in a second step meeting over at the old Primary Purpose, and it was a God meeting. And I remember a line from the Big Book that my mom had shared with me, maybe not that day, but the day before. And it had an effect because I don't know what was being said in the meeting, but it washed over me because I was in my second step reading. And the sentence was, rejoice in the Lord and you will receive the desires of your heart. And all of a sudden I started crying in that meeting. And it was a packed meeting, and it was 50-50 chicks and dudes, not like this meeting. And there was girls lined up on the counter up over across the way. And a couple of them I was wanting to holler at. And I was crying, and I swear for about 10 or 15 seconds, it didn't matter that they were seeing me crying. That's the point I'm trying to make. For about 10 or 15 seconds, I felt a sense of peace, and that I felt like I knew I wasn't going to drink right then, and a sense of freedom. And all of a sudden, those worldly clamors that Bill W. talks about that blots out that consciousness of God wasn't there. And then all of a sudden, in about 10 seconds, there was this little voice that said, she sees you, bro. You better be cool. I ain't kidding. She saw me. They was all looking at me. Then I got all big-eyed, and I saw that they was all looking at me like I was crazy because I was crying in the meeting. And then I remembered in Bill's story, in earlier in the book, where it talks about we used to cynically dissect people who claimed to be godly, and we looked askance at them crazy sumbitches, and I felt like they were looking askance at me because I was embracing God in a meeting and I was crying about how free I felt. And what I knew then is that statement out of the big book that said, rejoice in the Lord and you'll receive the desires of your heart. All of a sudden, I had realized at that moment, and I've been battling with it ever since, because, we go in and out of this embracing of God. I realized that the desires of my heart, what I thought were the desires of my heart up to that day, were the desires of my mind, which is the best car, the best chick, the most money. That's not the desires of my heart. That's the desires of my mind. And what I realized at that moment, and I think the reason that I was so peaceful and I was, having an emotional experience, was because I realized at that moment I had the desires of my heart, which was a couple or one real friend, a sense of peace, that I knew I was safe from the grim reaper of alcohol, which up to that point now I was new in recovery. I thought I was looking around every corner. Where's he going to lock my head off? I can't even go into the convenience store. There's a beer counter. I mean, my world had closed up because I was hiding from life, because I felt unsafe. And for that moment I felt safe. And we go in and out of this feeling, but I tell you, once I've had something like that happen to me, I know that I can't prove that God is there. But I know that feeling I had of being safe and feeling like that I appreciated the things that I had for a moment. Because my life had been spent up to that time searching for something I didn't have, trying to get somebody where I wasn't. And every time I would finally get there, whatever it was, it just left. I was searching. My wheels were spinning. And really, AA is the first place that I've ever found that I could really say, this is the first place that I've really gotten what I always was searching for, but really couldn't put words to it. And I think the reason I said all this up to this point is because the program has helped me to stop trying to prove God. In the 12 and 12, it talks about people of religion claim to have proof of the existence of God. This is page 28. You should go check it out. It really tells us why he named the chapter We Agnostics. He said people of atheists claim to have proof of the non-existence of God, and an agnostic says it can't be proved. And I've been in a million meetings on this stuff, and I ain't never seen nobody plop no proof down. Because there is no proof. That's why I'm right in the middle. I say it can't be proved. I say I'm not looking for proof. Even in agnostics, it says visual proof is the weakest proof. So what I'm looking for is evidence. That's my point about this whole thing, about why he called it agnostics, is that I'm not looking for proof. I'm looking for evidence in my life, and it's here. And the one thing that the program has helped me embrace is two words. It's called satisfactory and reasonableness. Concepts which I never could embrace before. And she mentioned the serenity prayer. In the second stanza of serenity prayer, it says, I want to be reasonably happy in this life so I can be supremely happy in the next. I was never okay with reasonable. It was the best or nothing. I was the best or I take my toys and go home. What this program has enabled me to do is embrace having a reasonably happy life. That's the key to staying here, in case anybody's interested in staying here, which I have done for decades now. Being okay with reasonableness is an absolute key here. Because this ain't the most exciting life you've ever come across. Let me just throw that out there to you. But I about had all the fun out there I could stand. What about satisfactory? Our book talks about it, and misquoted in the meetings as many as anything is. It says, like the book says, the best years of our existence lie ahead. That's not what it says. It says the most satisfactory years of our existence lie ahead. And it's no coincidence or no mistake that he put the word satisfactory. He knows that what I know is that I must be able to embrace a reasonably happy, satisfactory life, or I won't be able to stay here. And what I'll do is I'll kick God, the biggest, strongest one we've all said, I'll kick him right out of my life in 1 second. And he won't do anything about it like some of you guys would if I tried to kick you out of here. So I would rather have him with me, not kick him out, have him disclose himself to me by me seeking him enough, have him be interested in me because I'm interested in him. Although I can't prove it, I constantly am able to look for and I constantly am finding the evidence I need to keep me here one more day. I've had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, and I'll pass.